Movies can have a lasting impression on you and bring back great memories. Certain images you will always remember. Things that have been with me all my life and keep getting added to with every movie I see.
I will turn this place into the fucking Wild Bunch if I think that you are fucking with me.
18 from home.
This is the end of your rotten life, you motherfucking dope pusher.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Welcome to My Celluloid Heart Podcast, Season 4, Episode 148. On this podcast, we take two movies that live in our head and heart and put them together over two episodes by one topic or theme. There will be spoilers. I'm your host, Phillip Duke, and I am here with...
his cousin Chip. Hello, everybody.
That's right. Hello, Chip. Hello, everyone. I got a little bit of corrections. Not really big ones, but little ones. So
what'd you do, Ray?
Right.
You were wrong. Wrong. Finger guns. Wrong. In your weenie shot.
All right. So the Christopher Nolan movie that I was talking about was Following. I kept saying The Following, but I think I was talking about the movie, like the movie The Following, but it's called it's called Following, not The Following.
Gotcha.
And then you and I talked about Paul Greco, the leader of the Orphans, and you were like, I think he's a comedian. And we looked it up, and he's an actor and a gang member.
Well, but I meant like what I see
comic
him in
roles.
movies.
Okay.
Yes.
Not stand-up. Okay.
Not stand-up, no. Not at all.
Maybe
that's why it was weird, because like he was in those kind of doofy little roles, like in Oscar and stuff like that.
Right.
Where he's kind of like a little henchman type dude and whatever, and just had kind of I just remember his accent or whatever. And then just seeing him, the guy, unless it was like his doppelganger, because they say that there's technically, doppelgangers around the world of you genetically.
Well, he almost looks like, but his eye is, he's got that one weird eye, but he almost looks like the guy from Grounded for Life, like the brother from Grounded for Life.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, I wanted to say he was a real life gang member, and he was also in Crocodile Dundee and Oscar, just to name a few. He did die of lung cancer in 2008 at the age of 53. So thank you for all you did. I was gonna dedicate the show to him, but Chip rolled his eyes at that, so I could hear it in the text when I said I thinking of doing this, and Chip was just like, okay, and I was like, oh, that means whatever. So anyway. Because fuck cancer. That's all I have to say. We don't have to dedicate it to him, but we can say fuck cancer.
Fuck cancer. Oh, yeah. We can say fuck cancer all day long.
All right. Do you have anything to say before we get on with the show?
No, I don't think so. I started watching The Boys. I only got a episode and a half into it before my wife walked in. I was like, oh, pause. She saw the exploding of all the things. She was
bodies.
Like, oh, God. And then I would have been sleeping on the couch.
I have not watched the new season yet, but I'm excited to. But I also, I haven't watched it. Anyway, I gotta watch that. I gotta make time to do all that. Because I also want to watch, I got those movies from Brant, and I've never seen Taps. And I even heard the director of not the director of Jurassic Park, Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt was on Smartless. And he was like, I have a list of movies I'm going to show my 9-year-old son. And they were like, well, what are they? And he's like, okay, let me list them for you. And he lists them. And then Jason Bateman's like, what about Taps? And he's like, oh, shit, Taps. Yeah, that's a good one. So he wrote down, he's like, now I got to add one. And I'm like, oh, wow, maybe Taps. Like, I only heard of Taps because Sean Penn, Tom Cruise, their first thing. Like, okay. So I have that in my box. Maybe I'll watch that before next week.
Nice.
All right. You ready to get on with the show?
Yes, I am. Let's do it.
You are about to enter a world where people are moved by the music of a woman of beauty, where justice is in the hands of one man of courage, where the battle between good and evil is fought in streets of fire.
From now on, it's for real.
From the creators of 48 Hours, Streets of Fire, rated PG. Starts Friday, June 1st at select theaters.
Streets of Fire, 1984. Plot: a mercenary is hired to rescue his ex-girlfriend, a singer who has been kidnapped by a motorcycle gang. And real quick, Chip laughed as we were doing the segue into the theme, because into the TV spot. And whenever I edit, it's either you just saying, let's do it, or all right, like, yeah. And then I go, and then I'm always, should I put my okay in? Like, should I cut that off? So that's where I was like, I guess I'll say okay, and then I'll figure out to cut it or not. Anyway. Stars.
I look behind the scenes.
So how do you say this? Michael Parr or Michael Pereira? I think it's Michael Pereira. Yeah. So stars Michael Pereira as Tom Cody. They almost went with, well, they saw Eric Roberts, Tom Cruise, and Patrick Swayze. Ooh. They wanted Tom Cruise and made him an offer, but he had already accepted another role. So it was like, oh.
What was the other role?
I don't know. What's around 19? They start filming this in maybe 83, 84. So maybe it was Legend. Maybe he's doing Legend.
Oh, yeah.
Diane Lane. Diane Lane is Ellen Aim. So they wanted Daryl Hannah, but were unable to do a deal in time. So they wanted her to be like 28-year-old. They wanted everybody under 30 in this movie. And then they were like, and then Diane Lane walks in and she's wearing like leather pants and like rock and roll shit. And they're like, wow, like Walter Hill's like, she's dedicated. Like, yeah, she's rock and roll. Let's do it.
Nice.
Rick Moranis as Billy Fish. Amy Madigan as McCoy. So Amy Madigan originally read for Reva, the sister. Excuse me. And told Hill and Silver that she wanted to play the role of McCoy, which she remembers was written to be played by an overweight male who was a good soldier and really needed a job. It could still be tough and strong and have a woman do it without rewriting the part. So they were like, okay, you got it. Willem Dafoe.
That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Willem Dafoe is Raven. So Willem Dafoe was recommended by Catherine Bigelow. He had done a movie called The Loveless, which I saw like last year or something. It's like like her first film. Like she was doing all these short films, and then she did that one. He's in it playing like a biker, but it's weird but cool. And she had just made a film with him, so she was like, "Hey, how about Willem Dafoe?" And she was dating David Giller at the time, Giller, the guy from one of the guys from Alien. You know, Hill, Geiler, and the other guy, John Carpenter's buddy. They all make Alien together. A collaborator and friend of Hill at the time. Gross later said he thought Dafoe may have been the best thing about the film. So Larry Gross, who co-wrote it, he was like, yeah I think Dafoe is like the best part. Yeah. And Deborah Van Valkenburg as Reva. But also, you got Bill Paxton in there. You got, as Clyde, you got Robert Townsend as Lester. You got Michael T. Williamson as BJ. And you got Ed Bigley Jr. as Ben Gunn. Here's what's funny. I'm watching this, and I'm like, that looks like Ed Bigley Jr. I go, but Ed Bigley Jr. wouldn't be in this movie. Like, I'm not thinking about what year it was. I don't know what it was. I was like, he's in, he's doing St. Elsewhere. He don't give a shit. Like, and then at the end, it's like Ed Bigley Jr. I'm like, holy shit, that was Ed Bigley Jr. But what else was cool was I'm watching it. At the end, they're all up there singing. And all of a sudden, I go, honey, look, there's, you got shrimp, you got boiled shrimp, you got fried shrimp. I go, there's Michael T. Williamson. And then I go, oh, my God, it's Robert Townsend. My wife has no idea who Robert Townsend is, but Chip knows Hollywood, what's that called? Hollywood Nights? What's that called? No, Hollywood Shuffle.
Shuffle, yes. Shuffle.
So we were like, so I was like, oh, shit, that's awesome. So that was cool. Written by Walter Hill and Larry Gross. So here we go into the writing of this film. Are you ready? From a /film article titled "How Did This Get Made?" A conversation with Streets of Fire co-writer Larry Gross from 2016. Larry Gross said, "Streets of Fire began in the euphoria of knowing that Paramount really liked 48 Hours and wanted to be in business with us if they could. What happened was that after we screened the cut for Paramount, Larry looked at Walter and said, 'Paramount is pregnant. Let's get something and set it up right away.' Walter knew what he meant, that we were in a great position here, so he said, 'We can do this two ways. Present an idea now and get a deal done, or write a script on spec and get a lot more money. Walter proudly considers himself a capitalist, so he suggested we do the latter.
Nice.
And then Streets of Fire production notes read, according to Hill, the film's origins came out. This reminds me so much of that we'll get to later, but also after I read this, before I read it, I'll tell you now. The guy that did Fifth Element was written. Who's that guy that did that? I can't think of the French guy, but he created that when he was like 16.
Yeah,
and so I remember when my friend Joe saw it, and Joe was like, "That's like he goes, this is like some kid made it," and I'm like, and then you're like, "Oh shit, that's why!" Like that's awesome.
Yeah.
So Luc Besson, thank you, Chip.
Damn it.
I beat him to it. He was on his phone. I just figured it out. But that was good without looking it up. So according to him, the film's origins came out of a desire to make what he thought was a perfect film when he was a teenager and put in all of the things that he thought were great then and which I still have great affection for. Custom cars. There's one. Check. Kissing in the Rain. Check.
Nice.
Neon. Check. Trains in the Night. Check. High Speed Pursuit, Rumbles, Rock Stars, Motorcycles, Jokes in Tough Situations, Leather Jackets, and Questions of Honor.
Nice.
So, yeah, that was awesome because all that with the, what was the thing? Oh, the neon. I started realizing, like, when they did futuristic movies, everybody was like, it's going to be neon. And neon, you only see on bar signs. Like, there's no neon anywhere in the future.
Exactly.
In the same Slash Film interview with Larry Gross, he said Hill wanted to make a film about the hero of the comic book. But since he did not like any of the comic books he had read, he wanted it to be an original character. He wanted to create his own comic book movie without the source material actually being a comic book. And Gross, which led to the creation of Tom Cody. Gross published a diary from the shoot of 48 Hours, which had an entry dated August 12th, 1982. So this is when he came up with the idea. The night before filming on that movie started. And he says, quote, Walter presents me with a page of notes. He's prepared for a new script. It will be the first in a series of adventures of an action hero he's had in his mind to create for a long time. The character's name is Tom Cody, and Walter has it in his head to create a franchise about him, introducing him as the Stranger. He asked if I'm interested in writing the script with him. I asked him as a Pope Catholic. Larry Gordon and Joel Silver would be along on the ride. Suits me, unquote. So
that's awesome. I mean, it's upsetting that there wasn't more.
Yeah, well,
to it.
And from what Larry Gross says, and you totally see it in the film, I think it's Michael Pereira's fault in a way. I hate to put that all on him, and I was thinking of that. Like, if I'm him, I'm reading this going, what the fuck? Nobody likes me? Like, what the hell? But it's if you had somebody with the charisma like a Tom Cruise or a Patrick Swayze, and he was always, and also though they wrote it like he's always mean when he's yelling at even McCoy, and you're like, be nice to McCoy, be mean to Rick Moranis. Like, come on.
Well, and it was too much of the thing where the writing through the whole movie was very much everybody kind of talking shit to each other all the time.
Well, and if you noticed, it's what my wife hates about old movies, and you do too, I think, the dialogue. I'm going to talk, now you talk, now you talk, now you talk. It was a lot of that, and you're like, oh man, like it should be a little more like, like Howard Hawksian or something. But because of the success of Flashdance, they decided during writing the film that it would be a musical. We said, this movie is a stylized movie. It's not so different from the world of a musical. And there were a few other things that contributed to the direction. One was a decision on Universal's part, a crazy decision to shoot the movie almost entirely in the studio under a tarpaulin. I don't know if you knew this. They built this gigantic tarpaulin, like a tarp, and the battery and all these other places were built as real places, the Richlands. And just so you know, this is the early 80s, and you had stylized films like New York City that were all done on set, and that idea was in the air. That idea of a totally artificial universe. The point is that we had in mind one sentence inspired by George Lucas in a galaxy long ago, a futuristic past. That was in our heads. There's the past and there's the future, sort of. Mm-hmm. So also, sorry this is so long, but all this stuff I said, I got to tell Chip, I got to tell the audience. Also, we were in the universe of the teenage movie, teenage reality. So we said, here's what's going to be weird about the world of our movies. No one's going to be over 30. The world is a high school, essentially, and Tom Cody will be the football hero, and Willem Dafoe is a greaser. Remember, you had John Hughes at the time, and then you had Coppola making 2 high school movies, The Outsiders and Rumblefish. So Walter said, we're going to make a high school movie that's also going to be a comic book and also going to be a musical. And then directed by Walter Hill. So
the cool thing about that is that
yes.
because it's made from the mind, like all the things that he wanted, when he's younger.
Yeah.
I think maybe the whole thing of Michael Pereira makes sense for adults at the time. Mm-hmm. But for me being a young kid watching this, mm-hmm. I loved Michael Pereira.
Right.
I was looking up to him the same way that the person who made this, was, planning it to be.
Yeah.
I saw him as that badass dude, and I was like, oh, this is fucking awesome. So yeah. It worked for me.
I guess if you're a kid watching it, like my wife was like, what is this? Are they mm-hmm. in the 50s? I'm like, no, it's like timeless. Mm-hmm. But something else that comes up later on the facts is about how they almost put too much in it. It's like you and I talked about with all my stories that I've had through the years of all these different writings that I've done. Mm-hmm. And you said, why don't you pull a Kill Bill and put them all together? And I'm like, that'd be cool. And then you almost go, is that too much? Mm-hmm. And that might have happened here. Like they started making weird shit and then they were like, oh my God, it's almost out of hand and it isn't what we wanted. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
But are you ready for my recasted?
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Liam Hemsworth as Tom Cody.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to go with the guy that I just told you that I saw dog. What's his name? The Magic Mike.
Right
anyway.
Magic Mike, dude. Yeah.
Something with a C.
We're old.
Yeah, something with a C. Anyway.
Remember shit we talked about.
Anyway, it's okay. You guys all know who I mean. The guy from 21 Jump Street. Lady Gaga as Ellen Aim.
Nice.
Lewis Pullman as Billy Fish.
That's who I have.
Okay. I had a feeling that you might have Lady Gaga, but Lewis Pullman, I was kind of thinking. Miley Cyrus as McCoy. So here's the thing, right? I thought
awesome.
Liam Hemsworth, and then I thought, but she wouldn't want to play the girlfriend because they were almost married and they had this long affair, long relationship. So I'm like, if she was McCoy and was like, you're not my type, buddy, like told him that a couple times, like that.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Bill Skarsgård as Raven. I used your Bill Skarsgård from last week.
Mm-hmm.
And Dakota Johnson as Reva.
That's sister. Who I have, Dakota Johnson.
That's interesting.
So we have 2 of the same ones.
All right, Chip. What do you have?
All right. For Tom Cody,
mm-hmm.
I have Scott Eastwood.
Oh, he would be really good. That would be good.
That was like, I couldn't see anybody else while I was watching it. I'd say you're just seeing him. It was just weird. But this works out for me because Ellen Aim, I have Halsey.
Oh, cool. Okay. Has she ever acted?
Because she would actually be singing her song. So just like the way you picked a singer.
Yeah.
They would actually, because she was mouthing to somebody else doing the actual music in the original. It wasn't her singing.
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, gotta have somebody who could actually do the singing where you're like, oh, damn, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So
the guy I almost picked was Channing Tatum was the name we were trying to think of. Channing Tatum.
That's Channing Tatum.
Has she ever acted in anything? Do you know? Halsey?
No, I don't think so. Just her own videos and stuff.
Right.
I think there was something that she had posted not that long ago about some type of like a short film kind of a thing that was around her music or something, but I never saw anything on it. I didn't watch it. So.
Right. Okay.
All right, let's see. So we got Scott Eastwood, we got Halsey, and obviously we have Lewis Pullman as Billy Fish.
Cool.
McCoy, I don't know how exactly you say her last name. Cara Delevingne.
Yeah.
Delevingne.
Delevingne.
Yeah.
She's the girl from Luc Besson. She was in that V movie. It started with a V. What was it called? Valerian.
Yes.
She was in Valerian.
Yep.
She was badass in Valerian. Yeah, she would be cool.
I saw her as well, and my thing is like, who am I going to get that just kind of has that? Because it's hard to do Amy Madigan justice,
right?
Because the way she acts in this, and then when you see her as Shanice in Uncle Buck,
yeah,
you're just like, fuck, man, like it's so hard. She's one of those people,
and she's just you need somebody tough and like just awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Chip. Let's see. Raven. I'm excited.
Raven. Jared Leto.
Oh wow, yeah, with his Joker tattoos and his that'd be cool.
yeah. No, I just saw him with like his hair because he's been having like long hair and stuff a lot lately. But I just saw him like them cutting his hair and putting it up in this greaser type of look like Willem Dafoe had. And just being pale as shit, and being scary as fuck,
and like we said, you and I are fans of that guy, Jared Leto. Everybody see Chapter 27 about the guy that killed Lennon. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, but for me, it was a situation of the way that I saw Michael Pray fighting with Willem Dafoe, this big dude against a smaller, kind of spindly, kind of Joker kind of dude. And it's like, well, the Leto would fill that part where you're seeing almost a Batman-sized person fighting a Joker-sized person, but they're still equal in some weird fucking way.
Yeah,
because they're both using this weapon and stuff at the end.
And they're
so
both
it was like
about
I just
the same
saw that
height, maybe or whatever, or maybe even Leto's taller than him. Like you got that dynamic, like being that'd be cool.
So I just figured Scott Eastwood against Jared Leto, and then of course Reva is Dakota Johnson, like you have.
Yeah, awesome. So how did this movie come into your life, Chip? Because I've seen it because my cousin said you should check it out, and so I was like, really? Okay. And I watched it, and I was like, holy shit! Like I remember I called you, or whenever we talked, I was just like, oh my god, I saw it! Like he comes in there with his fucking butterfly knife and the gun, and like, oh, it's so cool and so different. How did you find it? On cable?
I believe it was on cable. Yeah, I believe it was a cable thing because I remember watching it. I don't know how many times because it just was playing on cable every day. And if it was on, I was watching it because I had a crush on Diane Lane and was just loving this movie. It wasn't. Yeah, and it wasn't until later that I saw The Outsiders, and I was like, holy shit. Like saw her in that too, and I was just like enamored with her for the longest time because of those two damn fucking movies. But it's funny now watching this, and I'm like, hey, we're watching The Green Goblin and Superman's mom.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny,
but but it's so like Willem Dafoe just does so good in this. Like you're like, I hope this kid does something. Like I hope he becomes big. But it's good. It's good. My rating even went up a little bit because I was like, this is so unique of a film that I got to give it more. So,
and knowing now that you gave the information that it was a closed set that they built makes sense to me because as I'm watching this, I'm going, this looks different than them just closing off streets, getting a permit and closing off some streets of Chicago or something like that. I was like, this looks too different. It's not
the Warriors. It's not the Warriors. This is where Walter Hill is like, we need a place right here. We need this. We need like made everything. It's like, holy shit. Are you ready? Because I got more on the tarp later, but you ready for some listener opinions?
Oh, yeah.
He was trying to think of a new word. Say, yeah, cool, right on, give it to me, kick my ass, shoot it at me. All over my head, neck, and chest. Gross.
Gross.
Okay, I know. Here's some listener opinions.
Well, you gotta have an opinion.
Well, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one.
I hated this movie.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
I like it!
Opinions vary.
Darkos.31 wrote, awesome movie, one great flick, unquote. MJ Motivation Fitness wrote, quote, what a unique and exciting movie. Walter Hill's kick-ass and the gorgeous, talented, and charismatic Diane Lane is simply perfect as Ellen Aim. Is it me, or does Diane Lane just lift the movie she's in? Any movie she's in, sorry. The soundtrack is also iconic. And then gave it 2 hand clap emojis, 2 fire emojis, 2 field goal emojis, and 2 hard eye emojis. So those field goals like with the hands. And then I wrote back, yes, Diane Lane does excel any movie she's in. And then Maria Paula Spinelli wrote, quote, I love Michael Pereira. And then 3 fire emojis. So there we go. Thank you, everyone. Okay, here we go for the tarp. Are you ready? Production designer John Vallone and his team constructed an elevated train line on the backlot of Universal Studios that perfectly matched the ones in Chicago. The film crew tarped in the New Street and Brownstone Street sets to double for the Richmond district setting, completely covering them so that night scenes could be filmed during the day. This tarp measured 1,240 feet long by 220 feet wide over both sets and cost $1.2 million to construct. However, this presented unusual problems. The sound of the tarp flapping in the wind interfered with the actors' dialogue. Birds who had nested in the tarp provided their own noisy interruptions. So,
Well, I was worried that because it was so enclosed and because it's a tarp, what about the fires that they set for those spots? Like, there's nowhere for the fucking smoke to go.
maybe because it's so high and maybe up there, maybe they got holes up there. I don't know. But, but yeah, I was thinking that too. So here's something Parr said. He had troubles with Rick Moranis. This is kind of funny because we're fans of Rick Moranis. So I don't know if Rick Moranis was playing mind games with him or what, but I'll tell you. Quote, Rick Moranis drove me out of my mind. There's this whole wave of insult comedy. In the real world, if someone insults you a couple times, you can smack them or punch them. You can't do that on a movie set. And these comedians walk around and they can say whatever they want. I'm just not that handy with that. Comedians are a special breed. They can antagonize you and say whatever they want, and you can't do anything to stop them. He's this weird-looking little guy who couldn't get laid in a whorehouse with a fistful of 50s. He would imitate me. The first thing he says to me is, do you just act cool, or are you really cool? That was the first sentence out of his mouth to me in Joel Silver's office. And I was like, oh, this is not going to go well. But he was one of Joel's dear friends, and he ended up making a bunch of movies for Disney. I just wasn't that sharp. I wasn't ready for that kind of crap. So it's like, I don't know if he was fucking with him to make him be tough, or if Rick Moranis was kind of like, I'm just whatever, like, who knows? Or if Rick Moranis had a big head at that time or what, but...
Well, and it very well could just be Rick Moranis being an actor who's basically like, the whole script is us going back and forth, trading tabs, saying shit to each other.
Exactly.
So that's the first line out of his mouth is like, this is who we're supposed to be. Let's do this. And then you're like, oh, he's a dick.
It's the story that we told on our another Walter Hill movie. Well, it wasn't. It was with 48 Hours, but Midnight Run, where Yaphet Kotto was talking about when he was on the set of Alien, his thing was, well, me and Ellen Ripley are like, I don't like that she's my boss. And I'm angry at her. And every time she wants me to do something, I'm like, fuck you. And I'm doing my own thing. So he didn't have as much of a fun time as the others did because he was in that method acting thing. Later he was like, I really wish that I would have just acted and been her friend and got to have a good time instead of being in my head of like, no, I need to hate this person. So
yeah, that makes sense, especially with everything going on now.
Yeah.
Where everybody's just talking down on the whole method acting thing
Yeah.
because of Jared Leto, the way he was on set and everything. So
yeah. Well, and sometimes it works, but it's that story of little guy. Who's the little guy from Rain Man? Not Tom Cruise.
Oh, Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah, Dustin Hoffman. He's in Marathon Man with an experienced actor, Shakespearean actor, Laurence Olivier, and Dustin Hoffman comes in. He's really proud to act with Laurence Olivier in the movie The Marathon Man, and he's like, hey man, I want to let you know that I stayed up for 2 days now. So it's like you're really interrogating me, and oh my God, and Laurence Olivier goes, how about acting? Like, just act like you're tired. Like, act like you've been up. And he's like, oh, like he really thought Laurence Olivier would be like, that's way to go. Laurence Olivier's old school. Like, I want to feel happy. I'll think of happy. I'll think of sad. I'll think that I've been up for 3 days.
Yeah.
So
manifest it, make it happen. Yeah,
exactly. So are you ready to discuss this movie?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. In Richmond, a city district in a time period that resembles the 1950s, referred to within the film as Another Time, Another Place, Ellen Aim, lead singer of Ellen Aim and the Attackers, has returned home for a concert. The Bombers, a biker gang from another part of town named the Battery, led by Raven Shattuck, crash the concert and kidnap Ellen. So this whole thing, like the movie starts out just right away, like it's rock and roll. They got these freeze frame, they got these dissolve, like weird, like just all of that was cool. It's like a comic book where it's like he wanted to do with Warriors with the pages turning or whatever.
Yeah, it was cool because it was like a fade, but with like rips. It was really weird, like ripped paper or something like that.
Yeah. But also like they do the freeze frames of him throwing the guy out the window.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's just really cool. Witnessing this is Reva Cody, who asked her brother Tom, an ex-soldier and Ellen's ex-boyfriend, to come home and rescue her. Upon his return, Tom defeats a small gang of greasers and takes their car. That we talked to. They walk in, and he's like, oh, yeah. And then 6 of them go running away. So this is why you should, as a kid, I get it, Chip, you're watching, you're like, Michael Pereira's badass. But now it's like it needs to be somebody with the charisma. It needs to be somebody with that it factor that you go, I see why 6 guys run away, Yeah.
Well, and I think as a kid, it was cool because their main dude, their leader, goes face to face with him, pulls out a switchblade, and he smacks him, takes his switchblade away, puts it back to normal, hands it back, says, try that again, and slaps the shit out of him like 7 or 8 times.
Yeah.
If he's your boss, if he's your leader, and he's getting his ass handed to him like that, I'm running away too.
No, that's very true. I forgot how quick that was. That was cool too. That fight was so quick. But also at the end, I'm like, are these guys like? We'll get to the end when we get to the end. But are they going to still follow Willem Dafoe, or are they going to be like, let's follow somebody else?
Well, and that's the difference right there. Is that the guy in the beginning? Just the moment he pulls out the knife, gets slapped, taken away, gives it back, tries it many times over. Willem Dafoe actually fought.
Yeah.
And got
and it was man on man. It wasn't me pulling a knife. I don't know if you have a knife, but it was. Let's fight with these things. Okay, let's fight with these pickaxe, metal, concrete, whatever they are. When Reva fails to convince Tom to rescue Ellen, he checks out the local tavern, the Blackhawk. He's annoyed by a tomboyish ex-soldier named McCoy. I don't think he's annoyed. A mechanic who could drive anything and who is good with her fists. So I do like that. Like you see Bill Paxton, and he's got like missing a tooth. And
I thought that was so cool.
And she's already,
for what idea is this? That they're just like, you know what? Yeah, let's make him one tooth missing.
Or if he was like, I'll miss his tooth. And also worked with Catherine Bigelow later with Near Dark, like she did, and that was her, I think, first big film. And then, but then with her being like, just run, he's like, I'm sick of running your tab, and she's like, here's the money, and he's like, we're still not gonna give you any booze, and you're like, oh, this poor thing.
That's what got me, is that I'm expecting her to have to pull out some 20s and shit when he says they're running up a tab, and she just throws out like
50 cents. She's like, here's 50 cents or something.
Yeah, it was like a 50-cent piece or something like that. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah. It's like, wow, sweet. They leave the bar, and Tom lets McCoy stay with him as him and Reva. So it's funny because she's tomboyish, but she's still a girl. So that's why when she goes into the bar later, they're like, hey, how you doing? It's a bunch of Joeys. Hey, how you doing? And he's like, hey, he's already told Reva, like, I'm not good with girls right now. I'm kind of having a slump like you. And then all of a sudden he's like, hey, do you want, and she's like, no, you're not my type, pal. And he's like, okay, you want to stay on the couch? And she's like, okay.
Yeah. I do like, though, that, like, pretty much through the whole movie, you're kind of like, okay, is she saying you're not my type because she actually is butch gay?
Right.
But they don't
Right,
elaborate
they don't
on
say
that
it,
because
yeah.
of the time period or whatever, that they're not going to say that, kind of
Yeah.
a thing for when this movie came out. Or it makes you think, well, what is her type?
Right.
Like, what the fuck?
I think her type is not a military guy. Like, she's been around all those military guys, and she's like, no, I want somebody else. Maybe she's bisexual. I don't know, but yeah. That night, Tom agrees to rescue Ellen, but for $10,000 to be paid by Ellen's manager and current boyfriend, Billy Fish. So, yeah, he has this dream, and then he goes in and tells her, like, yeah, let's set it up. She's like, okay. While Reva and McCoy go to a dinner to wait for Billy, Tom acquires a cache of weapons. So that part's kind of cool, too. He's like, hey, and the guy's like, oh, my God, this guy he lost a bet. He lost at poker, and I won all this shit. Like, you're like, oh, nice. Cache of weapons including a pump-action shotgun, a revolver, and a lever-action rifle. Tom and Billy meet at the diner, and Billy agrees to pay Tom, but Tom requires that Billy accompany him into the Battery to get Ellen, since he used to live there. After some negotiation, Billy agrees to go, and McCoy talks Tom into cutting her in for 10% in exchange for her help. So that part's funny, too, where he's like, I'm not going to pay her extra. He's like, he just said 10% of what he's paying me. Like, he didn't say for you to pay him.
Yeah.
But it's also that whole thing of them just being... Something else that I read that I didn't put in the facts was people were saying... because of maybe 40 or whatever, they were saying Walter Hill might be misogynist and not like women. And they were like, and Larry Gross was like, no, it's totally not that. He loves women.
Yeah.
But it is that thing of a lot of reviewers were like, oh, I really, picking on the girl. Like when he's like, shut up, dame, or whatever he's calling her, whatever Billy Fish is calling it. It's like, oh my God.
Oh, skirt.
Like,
Yeah, I
skirt,
could call her a skirt. Well, and that's the thing is you can't say, especially now knowing that it was originally a part for a man.
Yeah.
You can't say that he has something against women if he agreed to change a complete part from a man to a woman.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then he would be like, hell no, I have it for a man. Yeah, that would be his vision.
It's supposed to be a dude. Yeah, exactly. In the Battery, they visit Torchy's, where Billy used to book bands. So the dancer in that bar, that's the original. That's a girl that was Jennifer Beals' stunt double in Flashdance.
Yeah, I knew that from the moves. I didn't even have to look it up when I saw her moving and everything.
Like,
I was like, oh,
that's is that Jennifer Beals? Yeah.
Yep.
Is she on Tatooine? They wait until nightfall under an overpass, watching bikers come and go. Raven has Ellen tied up in an upstairs bedroom. So here's my other thing. Why does he want her? What is it that he, like, I wish they'd explain that a little bit. Like,
Well, I do like that they kind of did, because when he came in to talk to her and he said, just play nice. Like we're in love for about a week and I'll let you go.
Yeah.
Like she was just a toy for the week, a flavor of the week kind of a thing. And he's going to move on to somebody else. And I was like, wow, he's not obsessed with her.
Yeah.
He doesn't have,
He's not basically keep, it's not a Biff Tannen situation.
It's basically just proven to the rest of the guys that he's with that he's the leader. He can have what he wants whenever he wants. And that's basically what it was, that situation.
As Tom, Billy, and McCoy approach, Tom directs Billy to get the car and be out front in 15 minutes. This part annoyed me in a way. I'll tell you in a minute. Not annoyed in a big way, but McCoy enters and is stopped by one of the bombers pretending to like him. McCoy follows him to his special party room close to where Raven is playing poker. So she's like, aren't we going there? He's like, no, you come this way. McCoy then knocks him out. Tom finds a window and, as a distraction, starts shooting the gas tanks on the gang's motorcycles. He then reaches Ellen's room, cuts her free with McCoy's help, escapes just as Billy arrives at the front door. So what I would have liked is them both to be more coordinated and them both be in. Like, it was cool that she went in first, because he's like, if you can make it in there, then cool, meet me on the second floor. If not, and she's like, I'll show you. I'm fucking in already. Where are you? And so I would have liked, and while I'm watching it, I'm like, what's that movie where he's like, what took you guys so long? And then I go, oh yeah, it's Beverly Hills Cop 2. And he puts a gun over his shoulder. He's like, what took you guys so long?
Oh yeah.
And so I was like, that would have been cool for her to be like, what took you so long? Like, I've already dispatched all these people. Like, you know, now you're here. And them to kind of joke. But that was the other thing. Michael Pereira is always so serious. Yeah. Like I said before, he should have been a little nicer with her. You know, kind of, but he's just trying to be the stoic, but he's like not John Wayne. Like, you need, you know, it's not.
Well, yeah, it should have been like a level, like he should have slowly kind of through the movie changed, but he was always the same until like the end. Yeah. Kind of a situation where he starts interacting with everybody because he's happy and he knows what he needs to do.
And then and then McCoy being like, whatever, where again she says at the end, like, you're not my type, as they're driving away. Like, now they're a little more friendly, but it's like but I wrote here one of my notes, him coming in with the butterfly knife is cool, because you at that time you knew butterfly knives and you were like, oh yeah, like, that's so cool. So it was a cool, and then he just, even though he would have had to saw through that, especially the butter knife like blades suck, but he just chops it and she's free, and it's cool.
Yes, butterfly knives then were awesome. And then we saw Crocodile Dundee, and it fucked everything up. Yeah.
And Rambo. I got my Rambo knife over there. Yeah. Riding in the convertible. So then they're worried, do you really trust Billy? And she's like, yeah. He's like, yeah. And then when they get in the car with Billy, she goes, I'm driving. Like, everything she gets in, I'm driving. And then he's like, meet me at blah, blah, blah. And I like how Billy's like, but I'm from here. I've never heard of that. But she knows, like, what he means. So it's like, has she been there? Have they both been there? And they just wanted to bring Billy along just to, you know, have him there so he doesn't fuck him over.
Well, and I think it's also to have him there to keep her company. Yeah. Like, to be there with her while everything's going down, kind of a situation.
Yeah, true. Riding in the convertible, Tom sends his crew off to meet at the Grant Street overpass and leaves to blow up gas pumps outside a bar. So this is a thing, and I think when I first saw this, I was also wondering, he's just beating his gun up on that thing, and I'm like, is he trying to break his gun so he can beat people up with two parts of a gun? Like, what's he doing? And then it shows the gas leaking, and you're like, oh, that's a gas pump. And then he, you know, fires, is that Rambo? Fires a bow and arrow to it. Fires a flaming arrow. And then it blows up, which is cool. Blows up a gas pumps outside a bar. Raven appears out of the flames to confront Tom. And that's that part that I played in the trailer last week, is like, you know, I'm coming for you too.
And of course, in my head, I'm thinking, don't get too close to the fire because you're just wearing that vinyl.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, isn't that hot? And you're wearing leather through this whole thing. Like, aren't you sticky and shit sticking to your skin?
Well, I was thinking it's going to like melt off of me or something.
After learning who he is, Raven warns he will be coming for Ellen and for him too. Tom escapes on the one intact motorcycle. Billy persuades Ellen the only reason Tom rescued her was for money. So, that's where she's like, oh, really? And her, too. Like, she's great, but her acting in this is just kind of flat, like Michael Parr's, too. Like, Michael Pereira. It's just like, eh. But that Tom rescued her was for money. Tom returns as McCoy explains to Billy that Tom used to be Ellen's boyfriend. Ellen follows Tom while Billy and McCoy go back and forth once again about Tom and Ellen's love affair, which is kind of funny because she's like, oh, I think he loved her like a lot. And he's like, no. Ellen and Tom also have an argument. Then they all meet up on the street. They're in the Battery. The group is joined by Baby Doll, a fan of Ellen's, who warns them that the police are looking for whoever caused the fight at Torchy's. And go, Chip.
And this is the other movie that I could not think of, that Baby Doll, the girl that plays Baby Doll.
E.G. Daily.
Yeah, because she was the one that sang Better Off Dead in Better Off Dead, the movie. And she was also the best friend, ex-best friend of Phoebe in Friends that basically stole her Smelly Cat song or whatever to do the commercial.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, and then they both joined together to sing song. Yeah. I know her from, so I said, that's E.G. Daily from Pee-wee's Big Adventure. She's the voice of Rugrats and Babe Pig in the City. Also, she is a singer in her own right. So she was saying when Diane Lane's up there singing, like she's like, I wish I was up there. Like, I'm a singer. I want to get up there and sing, but she couldn't.
Yeah.
But it was cute. I like her. I always liked her. She was in Devil's Rejects, Rob Zombie movie. Her and Deborah Van Valkenburg.
Oh,
nice. Yeah, they were both like these two hookers in this hooker place. Oh, it was pretty cool. That's awesome. I just realized that connection. That's cool. In an attempt to escape undetected, the group boards the tour bus of a band called the Sorrels, or Sorrels. It should be two. Anyway, the Sorrels try to convince Ellen to let them open for her. And when the bus is stopped by the police, McCoy and Billy masquerade as the band's driver and manager, respectively. The charade almost fools the police, but ultimately the crew, now including the members of the Sorrels, has to escape on foot and take a train back to the Richmond. So that part's cool, too, where that cop, who we all know, which I can't think of what he's from, but he's from everything, is... And he's like, oh, really? Like, okay. And he's playing along. And then he's like, no, you fucking losers. Like, get out here. And then Tom's like, you don't even realize, like, Tom got out of the van. Tom got out of the bus somewhere. And now all of a sudden he shows up at the door and you're like, oh, shit. But if this were now, you'd have that fight from Nobody, like in the bus. Like that whole fight. Yeah. Where am I? The charade almost works. They return Ellen safely home, where she initially rejects her hometown as well as Tom. Later, he goes to the hotel where Ellen and Billy are staying to collect his reward. And that's where McCoy is like, give me some money. He's like, I don't have any money. She's like, fuck you then. And she like leaves and you're like, oh my God. He takes only McCoy's cut and throws the rest back at Billy. He then tells Ellen that there was a time he would have done anything for her, but no more. As Tom storms out, Ellen follows, and the two embrace in the rain. Meanwhile, Raven informs Officer Ed Price. My wife was like, is that guy from Police Academy? And I go, the one who makes the noises? She goes, no, the other one. I go, Bubba Smith? No, he's way too small for Bubba Smith.
Yeah.
She's like, oh. Head of the police department, that he wants Tom to meet him alone. If he agrees, he will leave the Richmond alone. Price warns Tom to get out of town. Tom, Ellen, and McCoy leave on a train. This part, I had forgot about it, and my wife was as surprised as I was. So, but Tom knocks out Ellen and returns to town for a climactic sledgehammer duel with Raven. Yeah, my wife was like, I'm like, oh, I guess they're leaving or something. And then he knocks her out. And my wife's like, oh shit. And I'm like, yeah. and then he just leaves. He's like, get her to wherever. And then he goes to a subway conductor to find out when the train's running. Did you notice the woman's lips and her voice and her lips? Lynn Thigpen, the DJ from the Warriors. And that was cool. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Tom defeats...
The dude, the police officer that stops the bus.
Uh-huh.
He's been in many things. 48 Hours, They Live, Escape from L.A.
What's his name?
His name is Peter Jason.
Peter Jason. Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. And did you say Escape from New York? No, you said They Live. Yeah, that guy. Yep.
Escape from L.A., not New York.
Escape from L.A., sorry. Oh, okay. Peter Jason. All right.
I'm trying to remember because I know there's got to be like a scene from a certain movie where he just like has some dialogue that just sticks with you, and I can't remember what it is.
I'll have to look it up too, but we'll get to you next week on that, me and Chip will.
Yep.
But yeah, I can vision it too. I envision him talking to somebody and being like, what the fuck? Tom defeats Raven, and the defeated gang carries their leader away. Later that night, Tom bids a final goodbye to Ellen as she performs on stage, and he rides off with McCoy. The end. So that's where she's like, I just found this car. So at first he's like, we got to get rid of the car. Then when they get back in town, he's got the car again. And you're like, okay. Yeah. Then he gets rid of the car, and then McCoy shows up, and she's like, oh, I just found it. And he's like, oh, really? And then he's like, you want me to go with you? She's like, yeah. He's like, how about? And she's like, I'm not your type. And he's like, okay. And then they drive off.
Like one of the only, 3 or 4 times he actually smiles throughout the whole damn thing?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Gross and Hill met with the editors on the weekends and looked at footage. Gross recalls, so that's the co-writer, Larry Gross, recalls that about 5 weeks into the 14-week shoot, I turned to Walter and said, this movie is somewhat weirder than we thought. We just didn't anticipate what the combination of elements was going to be. We had a very conscious design concept of the movie, but I think we didn't fully grasp how strong it would be in terms of the combination of elements. In a way, I think Streets of Fire was about expanding the Warriors concept to a bigger stage, but when expanding it to a bigger scale, it changed. The movie's bigness of size compositionally changed the meaning of things and made it more of a fairy tale. The Warriors, it was bewoven with a unique sense of realism. The fact that they made a deal with real gangs to be extras in the film, there was a true Godardian dialectic going on between artifice and reality. It's a very real-world film in some respects, but it's very artificial at the same time. We did that again, but we put the emphasis on the artifice, and we didn't fully, I want to say we had too much integrity. We went further with that, perhaps, than we should have. I don't know. I can't put everything together about what didn't work, but the most damaging thing is that we didn't have the right actor for Tom Cody. Maybe if we'd had Tom Cruise, we might have had a success. But our commitment to be stylized was thorough and conscious and maybe too extreme for the mainstream audience. So I could see that.
Yeah.
Gross also wrote in a film diary by Larry Gross, the screenwriter and Geronimo in Sight and Sound magazine in 1994, that there was a chance of something great, but early fundamental disappointment with key personnel, in that case the star Michael Pereira, steeled all of us to face the chance that it might not turn out that way. So they had visions of oh, it's going to be great.
Yeah, especially thinking that it was going to be a franchise where they could just keep going with it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then you get those dailies back or something, and you go, oh man, fuck, we should have went with, that's where you kind of respect Back to the Future for, even though I love Eric Stoltz, you respect them for being like, this isn't right. We need to pull you. We're going to get somebody else. And it worked. If it was Eric Stoltz, we wouldn't be talking about Back to the Future today. And there may have not been a second and third one.
Well, same thing with Big Bang Theory. The original girl that they had for Penny, just, if you go and you watch that on YouTube, it was like a totally different show because of this other girl. And luckily they realized it and pulled her out and then redid the pilot.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And it was a very different show. And they went on for 12 seasons or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
Larry Gross recalls the filmmakers were optimistic prior to release. We all knew in our hearts that Michael was disappointing. We felt that we had compensated adequately in making a fun, exciting, stylized world. I was disappointed in one aspect, a voiceover from Tom's sister that we had, which Walter later decided to cut. There were a couple of things in the narrative that I felt went out that probably should have stayed in. At the same time, I was myself knocked out by what Walter and cinematographer Andy Laszlo and our editor were doing visually on the film. It's fucking amazing. And I felt, as I watched the post-production process going on, I just saw the film getting better and better, more impressive, to the point where I thought it was going to do well. And I thought that we had done what we set out to do, created the world that we set out to create. It was a movie that was built to succeed. It's funny. The movie screened very, very well. I remember after the first screening, people told me that I was going to be rich for life. There was tremendous love and confidence. So the film went on to make a total of $8 million in North America compared to a production budget of $14.5 million.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, what from the movie sticks with you in your head and heart?
Honestly, I think it's always been the first like visual of Raven in the crowd when the light finally hits his face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like that's like something for me that even in the beginning with her singing and everything like that, and then in the whole play of that, I thought that was cool and all, but it was that moment where they were in the shadow all the way up until that one moment, and then all of a sudden it just boom, it shows his face, and you're just like, oh shit, that's the bad guy.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the way a villain needs to be introduced.
Yeah.
Like to me, that was the equivalent of '89 Batman, where Batman just slowly appeared behind those two guys while they're divvying up the shit.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, where you're like, oh shit's about to go down.
Yeah.
You know, when you see his face like that, I was like, oh fuck. You know.
And that's where my wife watching it, my wife was like, when she saw the motorcycles coming around the corner, she's like, oh shit. I go, yeah, some shit's gonna go down. But that music, that song is like fucking rock and roll. It works with her lip syncing, like it's still it just feels right. Just
the good thing about it,
everything is so extraordinary that it's so great. It's so different and so cool, you know.
The closest thing watching it today that reminded me of that the girl's voice and the lip syncing and everything being as good as it was on par with the in what was it 93 Meatloaf song.
Oh yeah,
where the girl that sang with him.
Yeah.
That was a model.
Do that. Yeah.
Yes, that was a model. The original singer, you know, wasn't actually, that wasn't her. That was a model singing that part and everything, and she did so well that you believed it was her. But at the same time, when I'm watching this movie and Diane Lane singing, all I was hearing in my head, all I was thinking about was that Meatloaf video.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I was like, it had that feel to it. It had that rock and roll ballad kind of a feel to everything that was being sung throughout the whole thing, especially at the very end. The very end song that was being sang was very much felt like it had that feeling from the girl singing from the, you know, I won't do that. So
yeah, no, for sure. Things that I remember the butterfly knife. Like I remember just like, oh wow, it's a butterfly knife. And Willem Dafoe just being bad guy, like so, like just like you're like holy shit, and him when he shows up to fight and he's just like got that, you know, and he's yelling and he's got like that weird look, like oh so good. But the biggest thing that I added here for how different it is, you could put this with Wizard of Oz or Phantom of the Paradise that I told you about. That's like Phantom of the Opera, but it's like a rock thing. Oh. Like so good. So reviews, Rotten Tomatoes, critical consensus reads, Streets of Fire may sometimes buckle under the strain of its ambition, fusion of disparate genres, but Walter Hill's bravura style gives this motorcycle musical fuel to burn.
Nice.
So I agree. Streets of Fire was intended to be the first in projected trilogy titled The Adventures of Tom Cody, with Hills tentatively titling the two sequels The Far City and Cody's Return. In From the Other World, Walter Hill's Streets of Fire in 70mm in New City Film in 2017, it said the Streets of Fire script concluded with the expectation that Streets of Fire will be followed by The Long Night, Book 2, in The Adventures of Tom Cody. And then Michael Pereira said that he was told by Joel Silver that the sequel was going to be set in the snow, fucking badass, and the following film would be set in the desert, which is what that direct-to-video unofficial, that I'll get to in a minute, an unofficial sequel titled Road to Hell was made in 2008, directed by Albert Pyun, and with Pereira, including Tom Cody, and Deborah Van Valkenburg playing his sister Reva Cody. So this was one I started to watch it this morning. I was like, I don't have time to watch the whole thing, but it's filmed like in the desert, but it's filmed in front of green screens and all this stuff. And it's these two girls who are killers, and Gabriel, the angel, is a woman, and she starts the show by like, I'm going to go, I have to get somebody, and she's going for Tom Cody because he's went like down and like really bad. But also so I think she ends up probably getting the killers, taking them, and then leaving Tom Cody.
So this is a mix. So like I said, what's the video you sent me? It looked like a Sega CD video game.
Exactly. Yeah, it looked like a cutscene from Wing. What was that one with Mark
Wing
Hamill?
Commander?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it sounds like a mix between Streets of Fire and trying to mix in a little bit of the Prophet.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell is going on?
And this was 2008. And like I said, where I'm going to go ahead and watch it, and I'll let you guys know because I have nothing but time. I know I got to watch that, but then I'll put on taps and I'll even it out with a good movie.
Yes.
But yeah, I just want to see where it goes because I've seen in that trailer that I sent you, there's a part where like it's his daughter, or is that supposed to be what's her name? Remember, he said, "I'm not going to be carrying your guitars" to Ellen Aim. Yeah. He's like, "I'm not that guy." And there's a part with him saying that, and I'm like, is that his daughter, or is that? I think it's supposed to be Ellen Aim because it came to a part where it's showing her sing, and it's supposed to be Diane Lane, but it's somebody else. But anyway, you ready for voting, reviewing, giving our ratings of this movie?
Mm-hmm.
I give this movie 4 out of 5 cellular hearts. I was going to do 3.5. I said, no, it's unique, it's different, it's cool, and even though Michael Pereira, okay, that's fine. I can forgive that. So, yeah, 4 out of 5.
I give it 4. I was going to give it 4.5 until I watched it again.
Mm-hmm.
And my big pet peeve, my big thing is part of the whole thing everybody's talking about is Michael Pereira.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of it.
Yeah.
My big thing that I've always said is that I want every character to have their own...
Right, yeah.
Their own identity, their own... that didn't work with this because everybody was talking the same. Everybody was talking shit the same. Everybody was like saying... Even when it got to the guys in the fucking bus, where even in moments where it made no sense, where they're talking and all of a sudden he just goes, "What did I tell you? I told you to be cool." Like that. Yeah. Like... They're just talking to the other people. There was nobody getting out of hand. There was nothing stupid happening.
Yeah.
But they just throw it in there where they're trying to make it sound like it has this style of speech that everybody's using or something. And I realized this through the whole movie that I'm like, this is happening where everybody's telling everybody to calm down, back the fuck up type of a mentality. Wow. And I was like, nobody has their own. The only one that really stood out was Amy Madigan.
Yeah. Well,
that was it.
And it's also where they were talking about how they're talking about how so Larry Gross and Walter Hill would write this together. Like, he would start it. Like he said, Walter Hill, he said, I hate starting scripts, but I would start it. Then I'd pass it off to Walter. Walter would write some. He'd pass it to me. And he goes, and I know how he thinks or what he's going to write. But that's kind of the bad thing of like, you can't write, say, Iron Man the way just as a normal guy like you would write, Sam Jones or, whatever. You can't write Nick Fury like you would write whatever Iron Man's saying because it's got to be smart. And it's that thing of, I think that's part of it when I think about it, not just that it's I'm going to talk now, you talk now, I'm going to talk now, you talk, but it was also just there was no... like Juice, like McCoy, I would have loved for her to break out of that and just be like, for one, a badass. For two, she kept saying like, I'll drive. But like do something else, like really pull her character out. And even Raven, like have him be like, a little more with him in the gang, like showing why he's feared or whatever,
Yeah. Well, and so like the whole thing was through most of the movie, just to kind of keep it going, everybody was acting the same way to each other. Back and forth, back and forth. It wasn't until Michael Pereira and Diane Lane get together and then they're kind of happy that Michael Pereira starts treating people differently.
Yeah.
And even when he's planning on leaving and he talks to Rick Moranis about leaving and they're basically nice to each other and he actually thanks him and stuff, it's like you waited too long in this movie for this type of reaction to each other. they're going through shit together to try and save this girl and trying to
that they
survive
both love.
everything.
Yeah.
It could have been much earlier to write it better than this. Like that's my problem, is that they didn't give them their own, like,
my biggest thing was you didn't feel for Michael Pereira. Like he wasn't a likable character in a way. Like if there would have been something more with him, maybe not. You got to have him be stoic, but you could still have him be a little jokey or be nice. Like going back to Stagecoach, John Wayne just trying to explain, like, I'm not below you. Like you're a banker who stole money. You think you're above me. Like I do my own shit. Like that whole thing, like treating the woman nice, like little things like that just matter immensely.
It's huge. And that's where I come to that point where I'm like, I'm kind of afraid right now, honestly, to go and actually watch Eddie and the Cruisers.
Yeah.
Because I'm afraid that what I thought it was isn't what it is. Yeah. Because I can honestly say, watching this, it's the style of this movie. It's the path of what they were trying to accomplish. Yeah. That they pulled off. Yeah. If they and I believe
the cinematography and everything.
Everything is awesome. Everybody did their part, except if they like you said, if they would have had a Tom Cruise, somebody that had just a little bit of because at least Tom Cruise. Yeah, because even in early stuff that Tom Cruise did, you know, if you look up some of that stuff, they talk about how creative he is and how he kind of works with the character and makes it better or whatever like that, that people liked working with him. I could see him elevating that movie to a point where this could have been, you know, a huge success.
But, and they could have done 2 more movies, and that's what we got gypped from. And Michael Pereira is still out there making movies. I think last thing I checked, he was in was some TV show, which I'd never heard of. So I don't know what network it's on, but okay. Yeah. You ready to get to Phil's film favorite of the week?
Oh yeah. Let's do it.
All right, here we go. It's Lights Out from 2016. So, I don't think it's said on air. I think I was telling Chip. I don't know. Was it on air? Was it not? I don't know. Anyway. Next week that we'll get to, some people are going to be on. Chip won't. I'm going to have Tim and Arsenio on. So I was talking to Tim earlier, and Tim was like, I said, what kind of movie, if Arsenio wants to be on the show, what would he want to do? What's something that he loves? And he goes, well, I don't know yet, but something that inspired his short film that we talked about on here called Whispers is a movie called Lights Out. And so I was like, oh, shit, let me check it out. Maybe when he's on, maybe if I like it enough, we can do that, or we'll figure out something. But at least I'll watch it. So I find it on Hulu. I watch it. I like scary movies, but no movies really scare me or like freaked out. Like, see, Chip just checked behind him. He's freaked out. Nothing really, it doesn't really scare me or make my heart jump or anything. This movie, let me tell you what it's about first. Rebecca must unlock the terror behind her little brother's experiences that once tested her sanity, bringing her face to face with a supernatural spirit attached to their mother. So their mother is the girl from, I think, the Howard Stern movie, Private Parts. Okay. And, but she's crazy, but she sees this person. And so she drinks a lot, takes pills. So you're like, oh, she's crazy. No. So it starts out with the guy from Starship Troopers. Like he was one of the good looking guy he used to be in Days of Our Lives.
Casper Van Dien?
No, the other guy. The other guy that he was kind of fighting against that ended up dating Diane. What's her name? Anyway, he was on another ship. But anyway, it had him in it. And he's working, and the lights start going out. And when he looks, he can see a shadow of something with a light behind it, but a shadow living in the dark. And so he's like, what? And he turns the light on, and it's not there. And then the lights go off, and then you see it get closer, and you're just like, what the fuck? So you got to stay in the light. This whole movie, you have to stay in the light. Don't go in the darkness. Like, put on all your fucking lights. Turn on all your flashlights. And so I was just like, every little thing that would scare me like that would make my heart, I don't know how to explain it. My heart would like jump or like had this weird feeling. And I was like, oh, Jesus. And my wife's like, holy shit. So it was really good.
She's like, you're 50. Maybe you shouldn't be watching this. Sir.
Yeah. She's like, here's your heart medication. So I gave that 4 hearts. It was really good. I really liked it. Like, it was awesome.
That's awesome.
So come back on June 24th for a very special episode where Tim Martin and Arsenio Alvarez join me for some conversations about movies. So we're going to do favorite actors, favorite directors, favorite movie scenes, and then like what got them into making short films and filmmaking. Because like I tried making films, but when you say watch this, what we just watched, Streets of Fire, you go, oh, okay. But now you have to film that and then edit it to make it have a feeling to it. Like I couldn't do that. I don't know. Do I cut into a close up? Do I do a far away? Like I have no medium shot, far away. So it's all that where a long time ago I thought I'm going to be a director. And then when I got with my friend who's doing the camera stuff, he's like, where do you want the shot? I'm like, you know that scene from 7 when he's by the garbage truck and it's raining? And my friend's like, I don't know movies like you do. You have to tell me, is it a close-up? Is it far away? Like, how do I want it? And I'm like, oh, I need to know more than just give me the shot from Streets of Fire when he's standing in the audience.
Yeah.
So anyway, so they'll be on, and it's just gonna be a loose talk about films and movies and all that love.
Awesome.
So yeah, so certain movies stick, and maybe Chip, hopefully, will give us some of his answers on those, so we can jump off of that. Certain movies stick with you; they stay in your head and heart forever. So from all of us at My Side of the Heart, keep watching movies. What do you have to say, Chip? I have nothing.
Don't be a Michael Pereira.
Okay, that is good. I like it. Yeah. Yes. Be a Tom Cruise, not a Michael Pereira. Don't go Scientology. Just be a nice guy who's like, everybody's like, here's all the money you want. Do Top Gun 2. And he's like, it's got to be the right time. It's got to be the right script. It's got to be the right story.
And it's got to have Val Kilmer, or I'm not doing it.
Exactly. And then he's like,
That's
I got it.
That's the type of guy you want to be.
Then he's like, I got it. Let's do it. And they do it. And you know there won't be a 3. He'll just be like, nope, we're done. Like, good.
Yep.
So it's awesome. All right, Chip. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Yeah.